I am so glad to get to speak to you today. Really appreciate Bruce giving me the invitation. My only regret today is I'm beginning to get a head cold. So I'm pretty deaf all the time. But I'm especially deaf today because my ears feel stopped up. But I don't feel that bad. I sound probably better or worse than I feel. But I'm just really glad to be here. I just hope and pray that you had a wonderful Christmas holiday season with your family. What a special time of year it is. Chicago was very warm. There was no snow until the day we left. Got about 2 inches, had to clear it off the windshield. But it was like Mobile weather, and they blamed us for it. Praised us actually for it, but it was very unusual for Chicago. But we were blessed with a special gift, and I will now give you the opportunity to observe that gift. My little baby granddaughter, number 20, and she was born December 9th. Her name is Hattie, and she and I have become very close. We talked a lot while I was there. I really enjoyed watching my son and his family open their Christmas gifts. They really get into that. And they buy a lot of little things. Not so much big presents, just little things that are kind of tailored to their individual personalities and likes and preferences. And they all know those. And I just think that is really delightful. I'm not good at getting gifts. That's just not one of my things. I'm too self-focused for that. I'll think about what I want, not about what you want. But they're really good at that. And over the years, I've thought about the quality of being a great gift receiver. You ever think about that? Who in your family is the best gift receiver? Innocent question. In my circle, it's my brother-in-law, Bob Steiger. He is just such a sweet soul. By the way, he's a big LSU fan. He's from New Orleans. So he's hoping to get a real gift next week. I don't know if it'll work out or not. But Bob, when he gets something, he unwraps it very carefully, takes it out of its an article of clothing. He just examines it like it's the most beautiful shirt or tie he's ever seen. And he just comments on it so graciously. And he just makes you feel like it's probably the best one he ever got. He's good. It's like a mom with a refrigerator full of art from her children. You got to be a mom to appreciate that kind of artistic expression. And today, we're going to have a lesson that looks at a very special gift exchange. Giving and receiving of a gift. You know, in preaching, as on many things in life, one of the challenges is to choose a topic. Remember how at the Olympics you have your artistic events like gymnastics or skating, and they have two categories of events, the compulsories and the options. Well, I kind of feel that way about preaching. There are some sermons that are optional and some that are compulsory. This, for me, is one of the compulsories. So when Bruce asked me to preach, I immediately had this one in mind because I haven't done it for a while. In fact, as I reflected, I haven't preached in about 4 years. And I had gotten real used to it over the previous 23 years. And it strikes me that it's kind of like getting back on a bicycle. Maybe you haven't forgotten altogether, but you may be a little wobbly. You understand what I'm saying? So, but I want to give us some background for our lesson today. We're going to start in Luke chapter 7. At the home of Simon the Pharisee. Simon the Pharisee. It's a remarkable story in that it's very intense. Jesus is there at this home. William Barclay says that like Simon's apparently, had a large inner courtyard, and that, surprisingly to us, I think, if you had a dinner for a visiting rabbi like Jesus, townspeople just might feel free to come right in to listen and observe what was going on. That's a little strange. You'd feel like a party crasher if you did that in our time. But Jesus is at table at this house of Simon the Pharisee. And a sinful woman enters. Most commentators think she was probably a prostitute. And she goes to Jesus' feet. The way they ate, you probably have this picture in your mind. They would rest on their left elbow on a kind of a table or a bed sort of arrangement, and use their right hand to reach in to eat. And their feet would be extended away from the table. She apparently went to the foot, as was appropriate, and began to anoint Jesus with perfume. And her tears literally washed his feet. And she uses her hair to wipe his feet. For a woman to have her hair down in public was a pretty scandalous thing. But that's exactly what she did. And most of the people at the meal were looking at that very unfavorably. If this rabbi had any clue who she was, she wouldn't be allowed to do this. But Jesus knew precisely who she was. And more importantly, he knew why she was there. She came with a heart full of joy and acceptance by Jesus. She seems to bring a heart full of gratitude of his grace and mercy and kindness and forgiveness. And that is the overwhelming reality for her at that event. Not the social niceties, but the reality that this man at table has brought love and the mercy of God and acceptance to her. And Jesus was most impressed with that. You know, I would feel uncomfortable with that kind of invasion of space. You see the story just a few days ago about the Pope who was in the line and the lady reached out to touch him and he just slapped her hand away. That's more what I would think. Get away. You're too close. But Jesus doesn't do that. He seems totally accepting of her. He's not embarrassed by her very excessive show of affection and regard for him. He has reverence for her and is extremely kind to her. And you remember the story he tells. He asked Simon, a couple of fellows owed money. One a small amount, one a large, and they're both forgiven their debt. Which one do you think loves the most? Well, I guess the one who was forgiven most. And Jesus said, you're right. You haven't done anything for me. You didn't even offer me water for my feet, which is basically the respectable as a host. She has not ceased to wash my feet with her tears. And her love is great. She's forgiven much. When I think of that story, when I read the story, I think about an experience I had as a fairly young adult. I was a college student, and I worked at a camp down in Arkansas. We had a young woman who came to our camp who had just moved into a children's home in Mississippi. She had been terribly neglected and abused. Her own mother had trafficked her for money. And she had a hunger to hear the gospel and just literally pestered us to tell her more about Jesus. And we sort of had this condescending pity in our attitude toward her. And then, after just a few days, she just insisted that she be allowed to be baptized. I'll never forget, it was in the evening. After the baptism, our director kind of came over to where some of us were standing, and we commented to ourselves, bless her heart, she doesn't have a clue what things are really all about. And she ran over to him, soaking wet from the baptism, threw her arms around him, and said, I must be the luckiest girl in the world. I never forget. And immediately my mind went to this story. She had a lot better picture of what had just happened than most of us did. She knew the contrast between the life she had lived and the one Jesus was opening to her. And Jesus loved that about her. And loved it about this woman here at the house of Simon the Pharisee. We begin to think of Jesus as a gift receiver. You know, one of the songs I like at Christmas is The Little Drummer Boy. You like that one? About the little boy, and he's poor. He has no gifts fit for the king, except just to play his little drum. Now, I'm sure that's just a made-up story. I don't think that comes from Scripture, actually. But I like it because it captures the heart of Jesus, and it captures the way little children are. They aren't really impressed with the value of the expense of gifts, but their little hearts are completely invested in giving what is precious to them. And this little child in the song, that's what he brings to Jesus. And we love that about the song. And we love that about Jesus. And Jesus, like a mother with that refrigerator heart, just takes that gift and puts it right up there for everyone to see. And he does that for you and me too. Jesus is quite the gift receiver. There are several instances, I think, of him doing that. The first, you may not go with me here at all as this being a gift. What about the loaves and the fishes? You think that was a gift? You know, John is the only gospel that tells us where those loaves and fishes came from. In the other accounts, they just say, well, we have 5 loaves and 2 fish. John tells us there was a little boy who had them. Do you think the apostles just took that little boy's food? I don't think so. I don't think they would have done that. I think when he heard the people needed food, he offered his. It's a version I prefer. You know, Dottie Rambo is a country singer. She has an album called Down by the Creek Bank, a little children's song. And she has a song in there about the little barefoot boy running through the sand. What are you going to do with that basket in your hand? There's hungry people waiting to be fed. How'd you like to share your fish and bread? And I think he was willing. And Jesus took that gift and did an amazing thing. By the way, one of the things I love about that story, if you remember the context, Jesus had told his disciples, you guys need to get away by yourselves and have a little bit of a retreat. Oh, they like that idea. Mark says they didn't even have time to eat. So they get in the boat to go to this little spot that they had in mind. But the crowd figured out where they were going. And when they got there, I'm guessing it was 20,000 people, 5,000 men, not counting the little kids and the women. And I don't think the disciples were happy. I mean, they had just purposed to get away from the crowd. Jesus, on the other hand, was delighted. Oh my goodness. Another good crowd. And he just taught them and gave them his best material, and they drank it in. And then comes the challenge. Well, fellas, what are you going to feed this mob? There's no place around here to buy food. If we had food, we couldn't afford enough. 200 denarii would not provide enough for everybody to even have a bite. Well, what do you got? And you know the story. But I like to think about the impact on the apostles. Remember their mindset? They're exhausted. They're tired of people. You get tired of people. You can have the king. One of my friends was a missionary in Honduras. She went down on a medical mission. She was a nurse practitioner. And they were working with really poor, desperately sick, needy people. And the people weren't that grateful. They didn't even much appreciate it. They took it for granted, complained. And at the end of the week, on a Friday, a woman came in who obviously was mentally challenged. She had a little baby that was so malnourished, it seemed hopeless. And so they came to Allison, to Allie, and with this baby. And the mother actually had a friend to help her communicate. And Allie looked at the baby and said, you know, there's just really nothing we can do. And sent her away. And just after she left, she said, the Lord brought to my mind, if you're not here for her, just who are you here for? So she ran out and stopped her and said, come on back and we'll do what we can. My son-in-law's brother is a doctor, and he was there with the medical team, and he got some very expensive medication from America that helped save this little girl's life. And that little girl ended up being adopted by that nurse. And that's her daughter today. She had no idea where that was headed, but that's where it was going. She was so grateful for that simple little gift. And Jesus was very impressed in Luke 21 with the gift of poverty of 2 copper coins of the widow. He said, this woman has put in more than all the others. He likes the gift that comes from the heart. He says sometimes the simplest gift may just be a drink of water. Remember in Matthew 10, he said, anyone who gives to these little ones even a drink of water in my name, his reward will not be overlooked. I think he may have been remembering the Adullam story. That's a great story from the life of David. You remember he had already been anointed king by Samuel. But he was waiting. He was very patient. He refused to raise his hand against the Lord's anointed, Saul. His thinking was, when God wants Saul deposed, he'll take care of it. And so he was living like an outlaw in a cave with his boys. Mighty men. These were some bad dudes in today's day. Jashobeam and Josheb killed 800 men with a spear. Really? Pretty fierce. Eleazar and Shammah both had one thing in common. The Philistines were the enemy, and the rest of the army retreated. They said, "No, I don't think so." And Eleazar stood and killed Philistines till his hand froze to the sword hilt. He couldn't even open his fingers, and he was just surrounded by dead Philistines. He was a fierce warrior. And the other one, Shammah, took his stand when the army retreated in a bean field, a lentil field, and just fought Philistines and slaughtered them all day long. These were the 3 mighty men. And they were something to be reckoned with. And these men were in the cave at Adullam with David. And David seems to have been very discouraged. His heart was just so down. And I'm supposing half rhetorically, he said, "Oh my, I'd like to have a drink from that sweet well water at Bethlehem." Now the problem was, Bethlehem was where the Philistines were garrisoned. Well, the mighty men heard him say that. And they said, "Really? The boss wants some Bethlehem water. Let's go." And they went. And they got him some water from that well. I'm guessing some Philistines died that night in order for David to have drink. And they brought it back and they gave it to David. And David, when it happened, he saw something very important, I think. He realized this wasn't just a gift of water from his loyal troops. This was a message from God. God was saying, "Son, I see what you're going through. I see your patience. I see your trust in my timing. I'm still with you. You're still my anointed king. And I haven't forgotten a thing." David refused to drink the water. Not as an insult, but he worshiped God by pouring it out as a drink offered to the Lord. It was too precious to drink to David. Oh, how he loved what they did. What looked like a skin of water was really a sign of the Lord's favor. So how does that fit our story of the anointing at Simon's house? Jesus was accompanied in his ministry by a team of women who were a special joy to him. We don't know a lot about them. One of them was Mary Magdalene. She's an interesting character. We don't really know a lot about her. There are a lot of traditions about her. One is that she was a very wealthy woman, a prostitute. We do know this from the scripture. She had had 7 demons cast out of her. Only 2 people that I'm aware of in the New Testament are said to have had multiple demons. She's one, the other was the Gadarene demoniac. There they said, we are legion. And they ran into 2,000 pigs and drowned them in the sea. But to have multiple demons must have been a horrible thing. Could they have made a woman a prostitute? Absolutely. I think so. But we don't know that. We just don't know that. I do know this, that following the story in Luke 7, it's the very next chapter, chapter 8 of Luke, where we're introduced to Mary Magdalene and told that she had had 7 demons cast out. This is not theology. I think more like a poet than a theologian. But I like to think of Mary maybe as that sinful woman. And if that's too much a stretch for you, I'm okay. You can be wrong if you want. But we know that she loved Jesus. There's no doubt about that. But it says some other things. It says that there were many others. It mentions a couple of Joanna. And isn't it interesting that Joanna was the wife of Herod's steward? You talk about infiltrating the palace. And she was using her own money to support Jesus. And her husband worked for the king. Susanna, we don't know anything about her. But it says there were many others who ministered to Jesus and the apostles every day. They fed them. They found them places to stay. They took care of their personal needs like a band of ministering angels. You ever think whether Mary and Martha might have been in that company? I don't think that's a stretch at all. They were 2 of the most devoted friends of Jesus in the New Testament. And if they wouldn't have traveled to support his needs, who would have? Many others, it says. Well, we don't know. I know this, that women are a great source of joy to Jesus and in his church. Women are a source of wisdom, and grace, and power, and love that is absolutely, in many ways, the engine of the church. I identify with some early pagan observer who said about Christians, what women these Christians are. Amen. I'm so grateful to have the blessing of working with our children in partnership with some of the women of this congregation. I appreciate my wife and Dorothy for their work on staff here at the church and their desire to give their best talents to minister to this congregation. I appreciate so much the work that Sherry does in this Angel Project, and so many of you in their partnership with that. But I especially love my children's worship partners. What a team. I love my praise team sisters, the beauty of their voices and their spirits. I started off working with the children with Marcia and Roxanne being their assistant on Wednesday night back in working with the children's classes. That was just a blessing to me. I graduated into doing that on my own and failed pretty miserably. And Debbie comes along and has a class full. What's going on with that? Debbie, me, I don't get it. But these women are amazing. And our group on Sunday that works, you know, today is the first day for Lily to be in children's church. Great day for Lily. Children's church, yeah, we'll see how that works out. May need reinforcements back there, I'm saying. Lily and Dexter are both among us. And it could be interesting. But it's just so good. Denise is outstanding in working with those kids and those of us who teach. Tom and I are honorary women. We're not really women, but we get to pretend and work with them in it. But Lisa, Shonda McKenzie, Cheryl Vivian, all of them just so excellent in the work with these kids. I want to say this. No ministry, I think, means more personally to Jesus than ministry to children. And perhaps there is no ministry in the church that's more predictive of its future than the priority it gives to its children. If you're a part of this church and you are not actively committed to making yourself available to minister to little children, you really ought to rethink that, in my opinion. That's ground zero. That's where the rubber meets the road. But going back to the gospel context and moving ahead in our focus today, we're in Bethany now at the house of another Simon. This time Simon the leper. And Mary is there, and Lazarus is there. And an event takes place that is very interesting. Mary of Bethany, and by the way, just so you know, some traditions are that Mary of Bethany, sister of Martha and Lazarus, was in fact Mary Magdalene. I don't see that in the text. But there's nothing that says it couldn't have been. But I'm going to treat them as two different people. But the story of Luke 7, I think, was very well known. Luke discovered it, apparently, in his interviews, in doing a biography about the Christ, and tells it there in Luke 7. It was a well-known, powerful story. And now, it's later in time in Jesus' life, and it's virtually the eve before Gethsemane. And they're in the house of Simon the leper there in Bethany. And a big crowd has come, people who want to see Lazarus, who's been raised from the dead, and Jesus, who raised him. And they've come. And Jesus' heart, though we know, is very troubled. In just a few hours, he'll be begging, Father, let this cup pass from me. And the answer is no, son. You've got to go ahead. But it's just not a happy, cheerful celebration of good times there at that house. It's a heavy thing, I think, indeed. And Mary of Bethany does a powerful thing. She takes a pound of pure nard. That was worth about 300. That's a year's wages. What do you make in a year? Imagine taking something of that worth and literally just pouring it out on a friend. That's what she did. Does that mean Mary was wealthy? Could have been. Could have been. Maybe she used some of those means to be a part of Jesus' daily ministry. I think that's possible. But you know what? Judas didn't like that. And it wasn't because of his piety. He said, you know, this could have been sold and the money given to the poor. Yeah, poor Judas. You know, sometimes thieves are full of piety. You got to learn to see through something. Jesus says, leave her alone. She she's done a beautiful thing for me. She's anointed me for my burial. That's a pretty remarkable statement. Jesus knew what was going to happen. I don't suppose that Mary did. I don't imagine Mary literally knew that he was going to die. Now, I don't want to short sell her on this. I think Mary was a woman of substance and depth. You remember the earlier story when they're together and Martha says, "Boss, tell her she needs to get out here in the kitchen and help me get the food ready." He said, "No, she's chosen the better part. And that won't be taken from her." Out of all social conventions, Mary of Bethany had a theological heart. She loved the teaching of Jesus. Jesus had a way of breaking out in some of these things to women. You remember the woman at the well in John 4? She's one of the most amazing stories because, number one, she's a social outcast, and number two, she is preoccupied with the identity of the Messiah. And Jesus openly and plainly says, "I am He." Women regarded as outcasts by their society, but not people Jesus was ashamed of at all. Mary saw several things that gave Jesus special value. Number one, her brother sitting there at the table eating with him was dead. And Jesus said, "Lazarus, come forth." And he did. She hadn't forgotten that. How much is that worth to you? Would that cover a year's expenses? I bet it would. She understood something about the theology of resurrection. "I know, Lord, that he will be raised in the last day." Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life." She understood some pretty deep things. And she knew that whatever she had of worth and value, it was too little to give to this friend. And the thing that impresses me about this is that Jesus was deeply affected and blessed and moved by what she did. So much so that he gives an amazing mandate. And that's the reason for this lesson today. Jesus said to me and to any of you who preach the gospel, wherever the gospel is preached, this story will be told in honor of her. And that's what I try to do. I've preached this story several times over the years. I always have thoughts different every time I come to it, and I don't think I've begun to capture the real power and depth of it. But I think that today, Jesus likes it, that here at Port City, we have remembered Mary's gift. He wants her valued and appreciated. And we need to take that to our heart. Thank you, Mary, for understanding so clearly what was happening. Thank you for expressing for us the worth and worthiness of the Son of God who was shortly to die on the cross. That is value to us that we can express. Thank you for Mary for showing honor and devotion to the one whom the mob would soon revile, crucifying. So do you understand Mary's gift? And do you know the object of her devotion? If you don't know this, if you don't love him like Mary did, that is your great need. There is nothing in your life that's worth more. There's no other issue. The one issue of life is, do you know Jesus? I had a friend named Janie Kirby who was 18 years old, I guess. She was a freshman, I think, at Harding. And her dad worked in the petroleum business, and he was in Arabia. And one Christmas, she and her brother flew to that part of the world, the Middle East, to visit. And while they were on the airport, on the plane in the airport, Yasser Arafat threw a bomb into that plane and killed Jamie Kirby. I was very angry about it. I didn't know how to process it. And my brother said something I'll never forget. He said, you know the only question about Janie Kirby or you or me or anybody else? There's only one question that matters. Do you know Jesus? Yeah. And that's what matters. And if you don't, you need to. Amen? That's Aaron's.
Without him I could do nothing.